What's up gamers, Dreamcastguy here, talking today about Telltale Games, because this famously failed studio is suddenly making a comeback. Despite the fact that they managed to explode so catastrophically last year, they have decided to rise like a phoenix from the ashes and make even more big, incredible games. Except that's not the truth. What's really weird is, this morning I woke up and a bunch of these gaming news websites are talking about the return of Telltale. But if you really dig into the facts, they're basically lying to you. I mean, at this point, none of the people who made the Telltale Games projects you enjoy are coming back. The artists probably aren't returning. The writers who crafted the stories that managed to make us scream or cry, they're coming back maybe as freelancers, but the people actually at the top, the directors, these people have been completely replaced. Now, some people seem a little bit confused by this concept. How can Telltale Games as a company come back when they're not really going to be making the true heart and soul of Telltale Games? Well, it comes down to intellectual property. This is basically where, in the art world, most artists actually don't own their art. In order to actually get funding or just more assets in order to actually create bigger and more illustrious projects, they take outside investment. Basically, billionaires or super millionaires step in and give some of their money to make sure projects get completed, which means that basically those rich dudes own the art. It's something you see a bunch actually with pretty much everything. I mean, something that definitely comes to mind for me is the Beatles. Pretty much everybody has managed to hear some Beatles music at some point. They are considered by many people to actually be the best band of all time. And I'm not really into music personally, but even I can kind of enjoy the Beatles. But here's the thing. These guys didn't own their own music, ever. I mean, it was always owned by companies and different people. So basically, at one point, Michael Jackson, the pop star, managed to save up so many billions of dollars of his own cash, he purchased the Beatles. Which means, anytime you've ever bought a Beatles album, that money went to the Jackson family. If you bought the Beatles Rock Band game that I absolutely love, that was actually money going to the Jacksons. And that's kind of weird because in video games, it actually happens way, way more often. Like if you're trying to play something like Gears of War 4. Now, some people actually hated this game because it is fundamentally so different. Essentially what happened behind the scenes is that Gears of War 4 was actually crafted by people who had never really touched a Gears of War title. Gears of War 1, 2, and 3 were made by some very creative and very groundbreaking individuals, but they honestly got bored with it and they decided to move on. But they couldn't take Gears with them because Microsoft actually owns the intellectual property. They were not allowed to take the thing that they had made, which meant that years later, when they wanted to try and do the next sequel, Microsoft just got their own little development crew to make another game. Almost nobody involved with the original trilogy even laid a finger on this project, which is kind of unfortunate because it made it where this game looked and felt very, very different. And honestly, this is what's about to happen with Telltale. So what I actually did is I dug through the reports and I found the real people who actually purchased this company, which is two gentlemen by the name of Jamie Ottilie and a gentleman named Brian Waddle. Now, both of these people seem fine, and I just realized my camera died, so let me just finish this video with gameplay. Basically, both of these guys have a long experience in video games themselves, but not in the conventional sense. Jamie Ottilie is the one that I was more interested in personally because he's the guy who has a big list of projects you can easily look up, but unfortunately, they're all mobile games. Yes, that's right. If you're going to be trying to get into anything involving Telltale Games, there's a good chance that now you're going to be looking at much more mobile style experiences. Now, the other stuff that this gentleman worked on that wasn't just crap to sit on your cell phone were actually licensed games for stuff like Duck Dynasty. Maybe you don't remember this, but there was a very, very awful Duck Dynasty game that came out a couple years ago. Well, guess what? Jamie made that, and somehow it turned such a big profit that he managed to use that cash to buy Telltale Games. So here's my main effort that I really want to try and press on people, is that just because a studio currently exists doesn't mean it's the same people, doesn't mean it'll be the same style of projects, doesn't mean the games will be good. We unfortunately see this quite often, which is where if somebody goes under, they get bought out, and then new people don't understand what made the original games original. Each and every single one of the Telltale games to me is interesting because it's like a game on a mission. It seems like the game developers realized that they could be lazy and chose not to. I like the fact that they have twists and turns and consequences, and a lot of times, since they did so much big license stuff, they managed to really expand universes that needed to be expanded. Like, I really enjoyed the Borderlands spin-offs because they were fun and they were funny, but more than that, I actually think that the Borderlands games, while they are exceptional looter shooters, they do need more lore. They do need more back characters. They did need that extra flavoring that they couldn't add. Telltale managed to pull that off. Telltale is not just great writers, it's not just really interesting programmers, it is a collective of people who managed to come together and do something that only they could pull off. Now, just putting this aside for a second, I want to look at a different aspect of this, which is the moral part of this. So, basically, right now, these two new guys who are suddenly the complete heads of this studio, despite the fact that they've never even touched the games, they've said that they're going to try and bring back parts of the original teams as freelancers. Now, there is a big issue that has been going on behind the scenes when it comes to a lot of the game development cycle when it comes to freelancers, which is where a lot of these studios now are finding people and basically saying, hey, we'll create you for this particular piece of art, or we'll pay you for this this background texture or this song. And then the people end up working hundreds and hundreds of hours way underpaid. It's basically a huge underlying issue, which is that if you're not actually clocking in and clocking out at a company, they don't have to give you benefits. They don't have to give you bonuses if the game sells 100 million units. They basically pay you for that one specific task and then fire you. And that's it. And so if you have an entire company built out of freelancers, then basically you are finding a way to screw over hundreds and hundreds of people at once. Now, the reason that there is definitely a group of people who go, I don't care. If the games are good, I don't care if people had to suffer to make it. Here's my issue. I respect games because they are art, and I think that the artists behind it absolutely deserve to be protected. These people have already managed to make so many good Telltale games. The fact that they will probably be paid the very, very least for making their final projects, to me, seems degrading. I mean, honestly, it seems like we're mistreating or allowing the mistreatment to developers if we allow them to make games like The Wolf Among Us or the Game of Thrones spinoff, and they're so freaking good, and then after this, we just tell them, alright, that's enough, pack your stuff up and leave. To me, that is an issue. The fact that these people are probably about to work the hardest that they ever have for the lowest amount of money, and some crappy cell phone developers are going to take the entire profit, to me, is evil. That is a problem, and they're probably going to get away with it. I mean, who's going to stop them? I think what we all need to do is just go into hypercritical mode. I want you to put on your thinking caps and just be ultra self-aware of the fact that things at this company are about to change. We're probably going to see some trailers for some upcoming Telltale games at some point. Be skeptical of them. Be aware of them. Ask them hard questions. Make sure that if they're going to make something, it's worth it. If they're going to pay their artists, make it worth it. Let's just make it a point that if Telltale is coming back, let's make sure it is the real Telltale Games. But thanks so much for watching this video. It's been an off-the-cuff rant, and obviously half of this was gameplay because my camera died. So I'm going to put everything on the charger, and next time I'll try not to be so dumb. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.